Story 1. This is something I experienced 2 years ago. I still don't actually know what really happened. It all started at my high school reunion party. In Japan, it's common practice for a school year group to meet up once a year to catch up. Quite a lot of the time, people are busy with family affairs and work and so on, but this was a special occasion. This was the party to celebrate the 10th anniversary since graduation from high school. Over half of us were attending, and most of my friends were hyped. To be honest, I didn't really have any special memories of being at school, and I don't have many friends I keep in touch with. I hadn't even bothered attending a single high school reunion event since the first one we had over 10 years ago, which sucked. After not attending the event for the third year straight, they stopped bothering to send me invites at all. Hence the reason I was so surprised that I saw the invite in the post one night when I got back from work. I felt a bit bad that I'd blown off previous events, so I figured I'd at least show my face at the reunion party, even if it was just for a short amount of time. Turning up, though, I initially found myself enjoying the event much more than I had anticipated. It was fun to see old faces, and we struck up conversations about our high school years. Things came up in conversation that I'd completely forgotten about over the years. You remember that time Kenji asked Akiko out? You remember that time Kigo told the teacher to fuck off? And so on. The problem was that as we all started to get more boozy, I should point out that I don't drink that much myself, things took a turn. People started to talk more about their current lives and about the stress they were experiencing with work, with their families, etc. Conversation also started becoming bitchier as people loosened up. And they started to complain about old teachers and badmouth the classmates that I decided not to attend the event. Interestingly, when we first started the party, we were all sat together with random people. But gradually, people started to flock towards their own groups, just like in high school. Naturally, being categorized as a quiet, uncool kid from high school, I was left with the nerds of the year. 2 hours passed, and finally the party came to an end. People started to drift off home. At this stage, most of them were wasted, and it was hilarious to watch many of them stumbling into each other as they swayed towards the exit of the restaurant. I was just putting on my shoes and was about to leave as well, when I heard someone call my name behind me. I looked back to find a very large girl with short black hair smiling at me. I could tell who it was straight away. It was Nakamura. She hadn't changed since school. Largest girl I'd ever met. She always had a stupid-looking smile on her plump face, not seeming to have a care in the world for anything. Unlike me, she'd been quite popular in school. She had never given a shit about studying, or anything for that matter, and thus had always been deemed as a cool kid. I hadn't spoken to her the whole night, considering that she was sat on the far side of the restaurant. I'd heard that she always turned up to the high school reunion every year, but she only turned up halfway through the event, when the drinks started to properly flow. I didn't see you all over there in the corner of the room. Laughing, she leaned down towards me, aligning the height of her face to be the same as mine, so we were staring directly into each other's eyes, face to face. She stank of alcohol. In fact, as she came closer to me, it smelt like her whole body was emanating a boozy stench. I remember thinking to myself that people really don't change, even after 10 years. And I think she thought that we were friends in school. She was one of those outgoing people who don't really properly think about what other people are thinking. You know, those overconfident people who are really outgoing and get in your face all the time? I'm sure you have such an inconsiderate dork near you as well. I found out later that, actually, many of the people who didn't turn up were people who were deliberately avoiding Nakamura. Seeing her face, I couldn't help remembering a harrowing event which happened involving her. All unaware of what she was like my first year at high school, I had told her about my secret crush on a girl. In hindsight, it was a stupid thing to do, to trust someone you don't even know properly. But I was young and she seemed nice, at least at face value, and she had come up to me and kindly asked if something was wrong since I was looking gloomy. Of course, not thinking anything of the gravity of such information at high school, she proceeded to tell everyone in school about my secret crush. Before I knew it, everyone was taking the piss out of me. At this age, the event itself didn't seem like such a big deal anymore, but I still hadn't forgotten about what this girl was like. I could mention 100 other things this girl did which were out of order, but it would end up taking too much time to write. And besides, I think you guys would get bored. She was obviously drunk, and so after exchanging pleasantries, I tried to leave. But she stopped me. Come on, don't be so bashful. We haven't seen each other in ages. She grabbed hold of me and wouldn't let go. I tried to shrug her off, but I couldn't. To reiterate, this was one huge girl. She probably weighed around 200 pounds and her grip was like a vice. She told me she wouldn't let me go until I'd given her my contact details. Apparently she was trying to get a hold of the whole year's address so she could keep in touch with everybody. I didn't want her calling me up, but in the end I had no choice. I gave her my number, and that was that. Around 1 month had passed since the party. It was Friday night and I was at home watching TV, reading books, just generally relaxing after a long day at work. I flicked through the channels without too much thought. The news, some anime, news again, nothing I found interesting. I eventually found myself watching a cooking show about a dish called jibby, made from wild animals such as deer or boar. As I watched the show, it reminded me of what someone was saying at the party 1 month earlier. I remember hearing someone discussing jibby cooking in the restaurant. They were saying something about how in the Second World War, when the Japanese were losing, people ate whatever they could find, including any wildlife. People actually got addicted to the taste of wild animals such as otters or squirrels, and craved the taste, continuing to eat the animals even after the war. I became interested in the idea of jibby cooking. The following day I searched around on the internet regarding the term. As I had heard in the restaurant, the dish wasn't necessarily confined to more common wildlife meats like boar or pheasant, but also otter, pigeon, or wild rabbits. In fact, it seemed the real hardcore fans of the dish actually spent time and effort getting special qualifications so that they could hunt down weird creatures in order to eat them as an ingredient of the dish. As I flicked through the site explaining the term jibby, something caught my attention that made my stomach turn. Towards the bottom of the site, it explained that a long time ago, people had cooked human meat as part of this dish, when food was scarce. I remember learning in school that cannibalism existed in times such as the Great War when food was scarce. Could it be possible that people became accustomed to the flavor of human meat and still eat it to this day? The thought itself made me want to throw up. I kept on searching on the internet about this topic. I couldn't seem to stop myself. It was like a demon had taken over my body, and I had no say in the matter. I had to learn more about this. I found myself reading about the history of cannibalism online. Even now, there were reports around the world of events where people addicted to human meat met in secret to eat parts of flesh they had collected. No one knew where these events happened, but there were pictures which made it onto the dark web. None of the pictures were illustrated on the site I was looking at due to internet regulations, but I did see an old photo of a group of people which was supposedly taken at one of these barbecues. The photo wasn't of very good quality, but I could just about make out the people in the photo. All the people seemed completely normal. They were all smiling on a clear sunny day. If I didn't know in advance the context of the photo, I would have said it was a normal photo of a large family reunion enjoying a nice midsummer's day. Even though I had started with just a general interest for a type of food, I ended up delving into one of the darkest, deepest parts of human insanity. I retched. I ended up looking into this for the whole day and was hungry. Then again, looking at food made me want to puke. It was late, so I decided to take a bath and read a few comic books until I got to sleep. But as I lay there reading, my phone started to ring. I was surprised. It seemed strange for someone to call me at this hour, given that at this point it was past midnight. Looking at the phone, it read that the call was from Shizuka. She was one of my few friends from high school. A bland but smart and studious girl. She had been sitting next to me the whole time at the party. I picked up the phone.
Oh, hi. Sorry to bother you at this hour. Are you okay to speak right now?
Shizuka seemed to be stressed. I could tell because she spoke into the phone hurriedly, as if she was trying to finish the call to me as soon as she possibly could. When I told her I was free to chat, she continued.
You remember Nakamura-san from the reunion party? Someone was trying to call her to organize another get-together, but they couldn't get through to her for ages. They got a close friend of hers to call her, but they couldn't speak to her either. Eventually, we ended up calling her parents, but it turns out that they can't find her either. No one has a clue where she is. She seems to have disappeared.
She elaborated that, out of desperation, she was calling everyone who had attended the party, just in case Nakamura had told anybody at the party what her plans were. She never called her parents, and it was possible that she had lost her phone on holiday or during a business trip. Hence, she explained, she was calling me to see if I knew where she was. I felt a brief flash of fear to hear that she had gone missing, but thinking about it, I didn't really care what happened to Nakamura. She'd forcefully taken my contact details, but I had blocked her phone number, and besides, it was an over-exaggeration to say that she was missing. She probably was just on holiday or something and hadn't told anybody about it. I truthfully told Shizuka that I had no idea where she was, and if there were any developments, to keep me posted. I got a call back from her quicker than I thought. This time, it was a text on a new group chat set up for everyone in our year group. They had found someone who knew the whereabouts of Nakamura. A girl named Yuki from our year who was working with Nakamura at the same supermarket that she worked at. She hadn't been at the party due to having to take care of her kid. Nakamura was a good worker. She turned up on time and was kind to the customers. But she had one big flaw. The problem was, Yuki said, that she ransacked the food on sale in the supermarket. Obviously, this wasn't against the rules nor against company policy since she was paying for the food. But it kept on escalating to the point that the customers started complaining that she was robbing the sales items off them. Yuki had warned Nakamura that this was starting to become an issue. And apparently, Nakamura had just gotten mad at her. She complained that with her salary and her massive body, the only way that she wouldn't go hungry was to take the cheap food the supermarket had to offer. Management had also issued her warnings, but she wouldn't listen. She also started taking frequent sick days. Or she said she was ill anyway, and started turning up to work late. According to Yuki, she was on the brink of being fired when she suddenly turned up to work one day and claimed to everybody that I found a much better job. I quit! She then never came back to work. Yuki had called her to get to the bottom of what was going on. A few days ago, before she quit her job, Nakamura had dated a guy she had met using a dating website. He was handsome and worked at a food production company. The guy had made a strong approach to her. Upon hearing that she didn't enjoy her current work, he had offered her a job at the food production plant, in exchange for her living with him at his apartment. The plant always had lots of free giveaway products which were faulty due to damaged packaging and so on. It meant Nakamura would have plenty of free food, and could eat as much as she liked. Bloody hell. So this is why she had disappeared? For the sake of free food, she quit her job to move to her boyfriend's place? I'd never heard of anything so stupid. Everyone must feel ridiculous for worrying about her. Yuki had also posted a photo of Nakamura that she had sent her a couple of weeks back. She said it was evidence to prove what she said was true, and that everybody should stop worrying about her. The photo was a picture of Nakamura and her new boyfriend at a campsite. Yuki had also attached to the photo the comment that Nakamura had sent Yuki with the photo. On a camping trip right now in Chiba Prefecture. Having so much fun. We were about to have a barbecue with friends. I'm gonna keep on eating until I burst. Indeed, just as Nakamura had said, the boyfriend in the photo was a very handsome man, in his late 30s. He wasn't small, but was skinny, and next to the rather plump and tall Nakamura, his size was dwarfed. I couldn't help but laugh. How did Nakamura manage to bag such a good-looking guy? It was at this point when another text popped up from the group chat. That stupid fat bitch. That's my fucking boyfriend. What do you mean she's disappeared? She's been sleeping with my boyfriend around his place. I can't believe this. That bitch. Next time I see her, I'm going to kill her. The texts were from another girl called Sawada in our year. She also still lived locally to our old school and was one of the cool kids of my class. She was pretty and always had good grades at school. Most of the good-looking guys in our year group had tried asking her out or had dated her at one point. I whistled. Whoa, things are really heating up, I thought to myself. But this did explain why no one was able to contact her. Her new boyfriend must have told Nakamura that he was already dating Sawada from our year, and that would explain why Nakamura hadn't replied to any texts or calls from our year group. She had wanted to avoid Sawada finding out for as long as possible. It seemed that everybody else had reached the same conclusion. Messages started popping up saying, "Well, I'm just glad she's okay." Damn, that was a waste of time. I just said goodnight to everybody and turned off my phone. It was a few nights later that Sawada sent around a text again. It was just to tell us all that she was terribly sorry about the angry texts that she had sent around the group. And she also said that she had found a new boyfriend. Well, I thought he was a good guy, but I can't help it if he likes ugly fat girls. I found an even better looking boy now, so I don't give a shit anymore. I couldn't help taking a dislike to her. This was the problem with popular pretty girls. Sawada continued to text the group line. Besides, that guy was a bit of a freak anyway. He always used to cook us this disgusting food called jibby, which I'd never even heard of. My new boyfriend likes normal food, thank God. I'm so glad I don't have to eat that jibby stuff anymore. Reading the text, I finally realized why I had overheard the term jibby being used at the party. It must have been Sawada complaining about her boyfriend's eating habits. I felt glad. All the pieces of the puzzle had come together. Why Nakamura had gone missing, why no one had been able to contact her, and why I had heard someone talking about jibby at the party. Even though it had nothing to do with me, I felt kind of relieved that the mystery had been solved. The night that Sawada sent the message on the group chat, my boyfriend was staying the night at my place. I showed him the picture of Nakamura and explained what had happened. He laughed. Wow, that girl really seems like a piece of work. Yeah, I know, right? Can you imagine quitting your job just to get a hold of more food? He laughed again. You know what, though, he said. The place you said the photo was taken, I know that place. I like to go mountain biking near that area. It seems weird that they would decide to do a camping trip near those parts. I shrugged. Oh, why not? You like to go biking near there, so why should it be weird that they decide to camp out in those parts? Well, it's just such an inconvenient place to do a camping trip, he replied. There's no town or people there, so no shops, and I don't think there were any camping sites near there either. I said I get quite close to that area, but I stay away just in case I have, some sort of injury. It's sometimes not possible to get a phone signal in the countryside, and with no people around, I'd be doomed if I were to injure myself badly. He convinced me. Thinking it was strange as well, I looked up the location Nakamura had gone camping using Google. It turns out that this was a location rumored as being haunted. A long time ago, a small town was located there, but due to the location's inconvenience, people had slowly migrated away to the city. All that was left there now was broken down old buildings. Nature had overrun the town. However, there were actually numerous numbers of pictures of the place online, since a Japanese TV show had explored the area after finding out the rumors that the place was a spot for ghostly sightings. In particular, there were many pictures of an old abandoned hospital. Within it were images of litter, indicating some sort of human inhabitation. Packages of empty cigarettes, beer cans, and burn marks where they had obviously lit some sort of fire. Why had Nakamura, her boyfriend, and friends decided to go to such a place for a camping trip? I wondered to myself. And then it hit me. Jibby. Abandoned, uninhabited location. Burn marks. It couldn't be. I opened up my search history and looked back at the website I had looked at a week ago regarding jibby cooking and cannibalism. I scrolled through the webpage to the bottom to see that photo. There it was. The photo of those normal-looking people, enjoying a barbecue on a midsummer's day. I gasped. Towards the back of the group was a man. A man who looked just like Nakamura's boyfriend. The photo wasn't of the best quality and was taken from afar, so I had to squint. But yes, the man looked like him. Jesus Christ. No, I must be imagining things. It's just a coincidence. He probably just looks a bit like him. I stared and stared at the photo, trying to work out if it really was him. Hey, what's the matter? My boyfriend tapped me on the shoulder and I came to my senses. I was probably just overthinking things. It's an interesting story, so I decided to share it. But even to this day, I still feel the effects of what happened. I actually ended up going vegetarian. Fish is fine, but I just couldn't bring myself to eat meat. Just seeing a lump of meat being sold at the supermarket makes me want to retch. I don't think I'll ever like to explore new flavors or foods either. I'll stick to what I know is good. Story 2. At the end of the day, us humans are social creatures. Just as we need to eat and sleep, we need interaction with other people. It's in our nature, part of our being. In this day and age with the internet, people are constantly interacting with one another, and it's easy to forget how blessed we are to have people around us that we love. As the oldest of 3 sisters, my son's wife was caring and gentle. Hence, I wasn't too worried. But I was wrong. Mom, she's telling me that once the divorce papers are sent off, she's going to kill me and then jump in front of a train. What should I do? It was as I was watching my favorite TV show when I got the call. I just don't know what to do. I can't seem to convince her. Mom, you've got to help me. As I heard him speak, I could tell that he was frightened out of his mind. Although I couldn't see him, I could picture him physically shivering in fear. It was so sudden that I couldn't immediately process the information. As I slowly started to understand the seriousness of the situation, I felt a cold sweat building on the back of my neck. When I think back, there had been signs suggesting that something was not right with the couple. Every now and again he would come back home looking very tired and depressed. I would ask him what was wrong, but he would simply tell me not to worry, and that he was just tired from work. As my son continued freaking out on the phone, the cogs of my mind started to turn. People say someone who says they're going to kill themselves doesn't actually commit suicide. It's just a cry for attention. It's pathetic. But that's not true. A person who says they're going to die is crying for help. People only say things like this when they truly are in trouble. In the past, I had a friend who constantly claimed to be suicidal. I ignored her, and she died. The memory of her still makes me cry sometimes. I had to do something to help my son. My son explained to me that his wife was just heading to the local council by train to hand over the divorce papers. Apparently, her plan was to hand in the papers and then jump in front of a train with my son. If my son didn't turn up to meet her at the station, she would jump in front of the train by herself. As I heard about her plans, I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. How could this woman be so selfish? She had basically made my son an emotional hostage. I won't let anything happen to you, I told him. I won't let either of you die. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. I dropped everything, grabbed a coat, and ran outside. Luckily, the local council wasn't too far from where I lived. If I drove, it wouldn't take longer than 15 minutes to get there. As I drove down to the local council, I tried to call the mother of my son's wife, but when I finally got through to her mobile, she just told me to fuck off and hung up on me. Her daughter could potentially die. How could she be so horrible? How could she call herself a mother? As I approached the council building, I saw my son's wife walking in the opposite direction. She must have just finished handing in the divorce papers. I parked the car at the council and chased after her on foot, Mother? What are you doing here? Out of breath, I had to pause for a few seconds before I could speak. I heard from my son about the divorce, and I was worried. It's so cold out here. Let's find somewhere to talk. We shouldn't do anything rash. She smiled at me. A crooked smile. A kind of smile which reassured to me that there was something wrong with this girl. It's okay. I'm going to meet up with him now, and then... She trailed off. Yeah, and then you're going to kill yourself, right? I thought to myself. Well, I won't let you. I will not let you. I literally half dragged her to the closest coffee shop and forced her to sit. I told her it would warm her up and brought her a cup of hot chocolate and a slice of cake which I knew she liked. She seemed to be hungry, and she wolfed down the cake as soon as the waitress handed it to her. I remember wondering if it was normal for a person considering suicide to eat in such a ravenous fashion. I called my son to the cafe. It only took him 10 minutes to find us. To my surprise, as soon as my son entered the cafe, she jumped up from her seat and jumped onto him, wrapping her arms around him. She proceeded to kiss him on the cheek. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I remember thinking that perhaps it really was a cry for attention. Maybe I had overreacted. My son seemed rather surprised too. Are you okay, darling? She smiled to him. The weird, warped smile again. Oh, of course I'm fine, dearest. Now that you're here, we can kill ourselves together. She then proceeded to kiss him again. And when I say kiss, this wasn't a light kiss on the cheek this time. This was a proper deep kiss. It was like she was trying to make love to him with her mouth. I felt sick. I actually felt like I was physically going to throw up. I began to try and convince her not to try and kill herself. How she had a lot to live for even though they were getting divorced. I explained that I myself had got divorced from my husband on very bad terms and that I hadn't talked to him the last 10 years. Have you also thought about the trouble you will cause everybody? Jumping in front of a train? That's insane. Imagine how it would traumatize children if they were watching. I just knew I couldn't let them go home on the train as they currently were. I couldn't let my son be alone with this crazy woman. I ordered a taxi to the front of the cafe and, fighting the fierce resistance, forced her into the taxi and told the driver to drive her back to my son's house. I told the driver that she was drunk. At the time, she had started such a tantrum that the taxi driver was refusing to take her back home. I had to plead with him. I even paid twice the going fare to persuade him. Eventually, he agreed. As the taxi drove off, the woman tried to open the door being obviously locked by the taxi driver. She then opened the window and looked back at us as the taxi drove off into the distance. She screamed at us all the way. Even when the taxi drove around the corner and we couldn't see it anymore, we could still hear the echo of her screams. It was absolutely insane. What happened after that, you ask? You'd like to know, right? It turns out that the whole affair was a staged show by my son's ex-wife. She hadn't even attempted to commit suicide. It was clear from her actions after the event as well. In fact, it turns out that the show she put on was the idea of her bitch mother. It was suggested to play the part of a suicidal crazy person to try and freak me out and get back together with my son. But at the end of the day, the divorce papers had been handed in. Me and my son are now complete strangers to those two. We don't have to see them ever again. Well, that's what I thought. But I was wrong. It isn't as easy as that to sever ties with a human being who's deeply infatuated with another. Even after the divorce papers had been accepted officially, I would still constantly get calls from my son's wife. But it wasn't difficult to deal with this. I simply blocked all calls from her number on my phone. However, she soon grew wise to this, and every night she would come over and call the intercom to our house. We have one of those high-tech ones which has a camera to the outside. Every night, we would hear the bell ring and then hear her voice resonate throughout the house.
Why won't you come back to me? Why won't you come back to me? Why won't you come back? Please come back to me.
Over and over and over again. Every time we would hear the bell ring at night, me and my son would pretend we weren't in by quickly switching off the lights and remaining as quiet as possible. We would sit in the darkness, shivering in fear, and wait for her to leave. It had become a daily activity of mine to delete the audio and video footage in the intercom every morning. As I would, every day I couldn't help but see the footage of the crazy woman. Even though I hated her, watching it would make me want to cry. It was as if the anguish in her expression was screaming out to me. I hated her for what she did to us, but I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Perhaps this was also the reason why I hadn't decided to call the police on her. It wasn't long after she started turning up around our house, however, that the engineers came to upgrade the intercom attached to the house. Soon after, the insane video messages. I had called the company in charge of maintenance regarding the problem. They'd offered to upgrade the intercom for a reasonable price, so that it could block her by shutting down as soon as it recognized her face or voice. Sure enough, from the day after the upgrade was done, we stopped receiving the daily late-night calls from my son's ex. I just remember being so glad that I could go to sleep at night without having to worry about all the craziness. A few weeks later, however, I received a call from the mother of the ex-wife. The bitch. I was going to give her a piece of my mind, but before I could start talking, she whimpered into the phone.
Please. Have you seen my daughter? She says she's going to kill herself. Please help. Have you seen her at all recently?
I chuckled to myself. Did this bitch think she could fool me again? I put the phone down on her without even dignifying the question with a reply. A year had passed since the event. It was the new year, and my son had come back home from the holidays with his new girlfriend. She was completely different to his previous girlfriend. She was slightly older than him, but was very sweet and considerate. I was so happy, so glad. She looked like she would take good care of my son. They were both sat down at the dining room table, and I'd just finished serving up dinner. I was just about to sit down as well, when I heard the doorbell beep. I was taken by surprise, given that it was the New Year. Traditionally, New Year's in Japan is spent with family, and everyone is off work. Even the postman didn't work on the New Year holidays. I pressed the button on the intercom and peered outside.
Why? Why? Why won't you come back to be with me?
Her face was deathly white and thin. It looked as if she hadn't eaten in the last year. She clung to the intercom camera and was screaming into the microphone. She had an expression that could only be described as being out of this world. If you made it this far, I hope you'll follow me on Twitter at KingSpookCreepy. Also, if you're feeling generous, I'd appreciate it if you donate even $1 to my Patreon over at patreon.com/kingspook. Every dollar helps. The hope is eventually I'll be able to get enough through Patreon that I can do this full time. Thanks for watching.